welcome to WoodTalk. Now here are three guys who like to use a lot of words, yet say nothing at all. Marc, Shannon, and Matt.
What's happening, everybody? It's show number 584, and on today's show, we're talking about, are you missing something by not engaging in CNC and digital design? Cutting a burl? Blame the sealer or blame the wood? I blame the woodworker, myself, personally. It's usually a good bet.
Who was that? Let me see. Who are you blaming? Martin, it's your fault.
Okay, it's Martin's fault.
Your fault.
All that and more coming up, but first we want to let you know that WoodTalk is proudly sponsored by Woodcraft. Woodcraft is the leading authority in woodworking, making, and creating. They have the tools, supplies, expertise, and hands-on classes to inspire creativity at every level. Learn more at woodcraft.com.
That's right, Mark. You're not the leading authority in any of those things. Congratulations.
Absolutely not. Don't come to me.
I had to do it. And if our show is also sponsored by the generous contributions of people like you. Woo! If you want to help support the show, you can do so. You can go to patreon.com/woodtalk and sign up to become a patron of the show. This time we're thanking Richard Tettleton, Brian Killen, Joshua Knutson, Martin Murray, and Steven. And, of course, if you become a patron, you get access to the ad-free version of the show, full of those awkward pauses that you all love. And maybe I'll even put some more in of my own, just for you guys, because I love you.
Little bonus pauses.
Exactly.
Bonus pauses. That's a new Patreon level.
It is.
A bonus pause episode.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed the last episode, which I kind of publicly referred to as an unscheduled episode. And I had someone leave a comment, really mean one. And he's like, are you implying that the show has a schedule?
Oh.
Nice.
I was like, you jerk.
Nice.
You big jerk. But he was right.
The schedule is whenever we get to it.
Yeah. Come on, man.
Seems like a
Give us
schedule.
break.
I think in our heads and our intentions, there is a schedule.
Always.
It's just, there's some translation errors between our intentions and reality.
I think you're right. Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to what's on the bench. I have to say, like, doing the recordings a little more frequently is nice, because then what's on the bench becomes like, there's actually every couple of weeks we do have things changing around, so it makes it more fun to discuss like,
don't
current
remember, like,
stuff.
what we talked about, when it was, and like all the things that happened since. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. All right, so I've moved on from the Mantle project that is now in its home with its owners. They were thrilled with that thing, which is kind of nice. I moved on to the raised garden bed project, and this is just not like I bought wood and I'm making a raised garden bed. What happened was we had this old, what do you call it, like a jungle gym playset thing in the backyard. It was here when we moved in. I'm guessing it's original to the house, which means it's over 10, maybe 12 years old. And the branding was on it. So I was able to start doing some research because I wanted to take it down. First, I just wanted to take it down. I was going to throw it away. Yeah, I didn't know what it was made of. I thought it was probably, some kind of pressure treated material. And I didn't feel like touching it. So I was just going to demolish it and get rid of it. And then I looked up the brand and I was like, oh, this brand really prides themselves on using like all natural materials. They put a little sealer on it, but ultimately it is just like usually cedar. So I started to look at the parts. I'm like, well, I mean, it's going to fall down. Like there's a lot of rotted components on this thing. Like, is there anything salvageable here? Because it was at least potentially decent material. We took all the parts, took all the material, all the hardware out of it, stacked everything up. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for it. This is not something I would normally do because it's a lot of work, but I'm going to take this stuff. I'm going to try to clean it up and see if I can't make a couple, because I happen to also want at that time some raised garden beds.
You got some pallets you want to take apart too while you're at it?
Yeah, the more chemicals.
He's pouring epoxy,
the
now he's on the pallet furniture. Oh boy.
Oh, jeez.
Right.
I just realized you're identifying a trend.
What did you do, Mark?
What is happening?
What happened to you?
Oh, coming soon, a new book in the Wood Whisperer library. Pallets and resins.
Oh, God. Next thing you know, I'm going to be burning wood with electricity.
Yeah.
And putting my life on the line to do it. Good God.
Hybrid pallet furniture. TM.
This is terrible. You just turned the whole vibe around. Now I'm
watching too much Jackman, I think.
Yeah, maybe. Well, anyway.
You're going to get to the point where David Marks won't talk to you anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I think we already passed that point. I think I've lost my privilege there.
For his own protection.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, it did turn out to be a Western red cedar, which is kind of funny because it's 2 Western red cedar things in a row. That Mantle was also Western red. And it was in not that bad condition. So I would say about 75% of the material with a little bit of planing and just some cleanup was actually salvageable and usable. And I have a big stack of stuff that just like, you just kind of grab the pieces and it just crumbles in your hands. It's totally rotted out. So I actually got enough for a 6x4 raised bed and a 4x4 raised bed.
That's pretty big.
So yeah, I mean, not bad. So I'm super excited about it. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. You guys got to watch that zucchini. I like planting zucchini, but oh my gosh, does that take over a garden?
They get big.
They do. Like the 6x4 might be enough for 1 zucchini.
Yeah.
1 zucchini.
One really happy zucchini.
Yeah, very happy one.
Yeah, right.
So raised garden beds. I'm looking into like non-toxic sealers on the interior, a little bit of a different thing than I've ever had to worry about because you really don't want like anything toxic in contact with the soil if you could avoid it. But then, of course, a good quality sealer of any kind on the outside. And just really all the struggles of trying to make, whatever I had to work with, make it work. And in one case, like I want to put a little mitered frame on the top so that you have something a little bit more than 1.25 inch edge to sit on if you want to sit there. So there's going to be a little lip put on there. And to get the length, I had already used all my long stuff. So to stick with the theme of only using material from this project, I did the board stretcher and I actually did a half lap joint on a couple of the pieces to make sure I have long enough rails to do this thing. And I'm looking at beautiful boards of white oak sitting in the other side of the shop that I'm like, I could just cut those and make a frame out of that. But I'm like, the whole point.
All you gotta do is like, they'll drag them through the dirt for a while, make them look old and dirty. And like, look, here's some more boards.
I just happened to find these outside too. Right. So I figured I wanted to keep the theme and be as efficient as possible. So did my half laps, glued them up yesterday, and we'll soon have the top frame done for these things too. So
it's a perfect opportunity to build a nice scarf joint.
Yeah.
Right.
Really
I thought about
overcomplicated Japanese scarf joint.
Oh God, with the wedge and everything popped in there.
Miyajima Tsugi or Kanaeoi Hiwalablara Tsugi.
One of those. No, I just went with a half lap, you guys. So I hope that's good enough
for you.
Anyway,
I guess.
So yeah, hopefully.
I feel like that's my evolution. We've talked about woodworking evolution and our honeymoon period in our last episode. I feel like that's the evolution I've come through. I've done try out the crazy different joints. Now I just do mortise and tenons, occasional half lap.
Just what works.
I'm done trying to impress.
I got nothing to prove
Just going to
anymore.
cut mortise and tenons, dovetail occasionally. Yeah.
Well, and not to go down a content creator path that people usually hate, but this presented a bit of a problem because it's now late May. And I really wanted to get some plants in the ground. And I wanted to either go buy the material and just build the raised bed or even find a pre-built raised bed. I just wanted to move forward. And then we decided we were taking the playground down. And my creator brain said, well, there it is. There's the material I'm going to use. But it's a process now. It takes a lot longer to mill all that stuff up and make sense of it. And it's just delaying everything. And plus I'm filming it. So it's all taking longer. And now I'm like looking at being in early June or maybe, first week into June might be my first opportunity to actually put soil in this thing and get some plants in there. It's a little later in the season than I was hoping for. So, but again, I'm doing it because I wanted to make the video. So just a content creator challenge, I think that happens sometimes.
Out of curiosity, are you going to include that in your video? The planting aspect?
I thought about it, right? What do you think? Because this goes into the territory of like people giving me crap about stuff that I don't know that much about.
Right. Well, and it's probably because I've never actually searched for it, but I've seen lots of raised garden bed projects, but they always stop it once the woodworking's over, obviously, because it's a woodworking channel I'm watching. But I honestly don't know. Like I've thought the same thing. I've got a spot in my yard. I could build a raised garden bed, but I don't know what to do from there. Like, do I just go buy like topsoil? What do I do? Do I get potting soil? And I'm honestly curious. I'd rather hear it from someone that I already trust. I'm already watching than frankly go down the rabbit hole of like Googling gardening forums and gardening. I don't know.
Which is what I've done. Because I needed to know, right? Like I'm going to do this for myself. I've done the research. I have an idea of what I'm going to do, what my strategy is. And it's not just, throw this thing on the ground and fill it with dirt. There's a whole thing. So I can do that, but I'm going to have to brace myself for everybody telling me what I did wrong.
I mean, I obviously don't think you make a big part of it, but like, the last minute voiceover type thing.
Well, wouldn't it
I feel
be
like
nice
that
to
would
actually, the ending to be like seeing this thing filled with baby vegetables? Like,
Right.
That's kind of the whole point of why we're doing it. So
Well, I'm just
baby
thinking in
carrots just
terms
laying-
of like,
There's one baby
I'm
carrot.
just picturing like vegetables just like laying in the dirt.
Yeah.
Like, here's some baby carrots and here's some
couple
little
of carrots.
zucchinis. And
this is zucchini.
Yeah, before I do any planting, I'll just go to the grocery
vegetable
store.
garden. They're just hanging out. I don't know.
That's actually there's your final shot. You pour some dirt in, and then you just like throw a
the
zucchini on it,
vegetables on
throw
there.
a
Here's a
carrot on it.
potato. And
Yeah, that's the thumbnail.
We'll just
right
let
there.
that take seed and come back.
This is how you do it, right?
That's actually very on brand for the Wood Whisperer. Now that I think about it,
I mean, yeah, it's not a bad
the
idea.
level of snark is perfect right there.
I kind of like it.
No,
That would be great.
I personally, I'd love to see you include that. And I think like,
Okay.
you know, if I were watching that project as a woodworker, thinking, okay, let's watch a garden bed video. And if you get to the end, you're like, okay, now what do I do? Like as a public service to the woodworker who just built that project, yeah, maybe they know better, but, you know, I'm totally not knowing what I'm talking about. Like how hard can it be?
It's like anything else. Now that
Ducking.
all this
That was
information is out there, right? Like it's way
Yeah.
harder than if you really want to do it right. You know, you got a lot of critics out there and a lot of people. I found the same thing when I set up my new fish tank. How much has changed in the amount of information that is just now acceptable? Like this is just how it's done. That 10 years ago wasn't actually how it was done. Like it's changed so much. So
True.
yeah, I'll think about it. I'll definitely think about it. I will think about it. All right, Matt, what do you got going on?
I think we can have a challenge if you want. We can redo our challenge thing with this time being gardens because I have to do something very similar here.
Ooh.
Now that we were talking about that. That's been on my list for like 2 weeks. Before Lindsay left, which I'll talk about in a second, we bought some vegetable plants and she's like, we only like wanted to put a little garden in at some point, but like we don't really know where we want to put it. And like
She'll be back, by the way, for people who are immediately like, oh my God, Lindsay left.
she's not dead.
What will Matt do?
Not
She didn't
dead.
like permanently leave. She just got sick of Matt's crap. Is
too many woodcraft dates. She's like, that's it. That's
true.
I'm out.
One
I'm
too
done.
many trips to Woodcraft.
I tried again, but we didn't do it. Anyway, we've been like kind of floating the idea of having a vegetable garden here. We did container gardening at our old house, which was easy and fine. But it's like, okay, well, are we actually going to have the time to like tend to the garden enough? So I don't want to go crazy overboard with how big I make it and dedicate all the space if something just falls into disrepair and doesn't get used ever. So we decided we're going to put in a little thing in. The container gardening thing is kind of hard here because the deer are insane. So anything I do, first I have to put some perimeter fencing around anything I build. But I think that's kind of where I've been kind of dialing it back the more time goes by because the plants are here. They've been here for 2 weeks in little pots, and they're not really doing anything because they're like in little pots. They got to get in the ground.
Yeah, they're not
So,
happy.
like, I've been dialing it back. I'm like, okay, I could like do like a fence thing. I'm like, I could like do a whole raised area with cinder blocks. I got a lot of cinder block laying around, and I'm like, I'm walking it back more and more time that comes by here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, instead of putting up like a real fence, I'm like, I'm just gonna get deer netting, I think, and put that up just to kind of give some kind of protection from the deer, instead of actually like, sinking fence posts into the ground.
Yeah.
and
I mean, well,
hanging
there's a
wire
bit of a
fencing
window.
up.
There's like a seasonal window here too. And if you've got the plants already,
Yeah,
like the clock's ticking.
they're here. I mean, I gotta get them in the ground.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got all these old fence boards. I think I'm just gonna lay a few on the ground just to get a little like a slight raised lip thing going on. Fill that thing with dirt, get them in the ground, and just like be okay with it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be at this point because we don't know if we're gonna use it that much, and it's
Yeah.
gonna be pretty small right now. Is it gonna stay in that spot? I don't know. That was like one of the things. Like we're walking around the yard, like where should we put this? Lindsay's like, I don't really want to see this from the house. I'm like, okay. So like it's way the heck behind the horse barn, which means like there's no water access close. So like now we gotta like run a hose over there every time you want to water. It's like I don't know how like effective this is gonna be.
That's garden bed suicide, by the way. There's a
I'm
couple things that
I'm fully aware.
this might just be my opinion, but if you can't see it and you can't easily access the maintenance aspect of it, and it's not easy to get to for harvesting, it will not be a priority.
I mean,
is what usually
it's
happens.
close. It's just you can't see it, so you have to like
Not
be
directly.
intentional about going out there.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're gonna I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But that's kind of what's going on here in the home front of like. I also walked back the whole video idea with it too because like I just don't want to
Not
do
worth it.
I just want to be done with
Just
this.
want to get it done. Yeah.
What you guys might look into is a whole thing about like ground level garden beds where you don't actually worry about raising it. Now, you will have to get that chicken wire or whatever.
I was thinking about raised beds so I don't have to dig up the sod because I'm lazy.
Right. Yeah.
That's the only
fair.
reason I'm not doing in ground because I don't have to till it's all hay fields. I don't have
Okay.
to
Yeah.
get rid of all the hay grass first.
Right.
And
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not going to clear the ground either. I'm just going to plop them right on top, and I'll bring the lawnmower in there and mow the grass. It'll stay in there with all the vegetables. I'm not doing all those like Pinterest perfect arbor gates and with like the sexy raised beds and the mulch and the wood chips down everywhere. I'm like, no, I'm not. We're going like full on utilitarian on this.
So Sanford and Son garden bed. I get it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the other thing I
sometimes
could
just
do
get it
is just
started.
put up the deer netting and just plop all our containers in there because I brought them all from my old house. So I'm like, that's
there you
another
go.
option. I'm like, I have these big planter boxes that I built like 15 years ago out of tongue and groove pine. They're still together. They're forkable because I had the like foresight back then to make them forkable before I even had a forkable thing. So I brought them home. I brought them here when we moved.
Yeah.
And
I
we've
don't
been
mean to
using
brag, but a lot of people do consider me forkable as well.
I would say even
Beat me to
spoonable.
that. Damn
It's
it.
just that's true. I am spoonable. A little bony though.
Oh boy.
I actually had the foresight to think, should I say this?
Yeah.
No. Mark.
I have a very little filter, especially after doing the live show with my wife.
We're doing that today. Oh my goodness. Here we are with that one.
But I think you bring up a really good point. How many people and people listening end up in this kind of quandary where there's a thing that you're not totally sure of the permanency of what you want, but you know you have the skill set, you have the ability to do it, but you're stuck in this kind of purgatory where you want to get moving, but you don't want to commit. And sometimes whatever you do that's like kind of a temporary solution, eventually just kind of becomes the permanent solution. Right. So you better be careful, where you put it and what it is. So yeah, I think a lot of people can probably relate.
Yep.
Cool.
Nice.
So is that your thing, or did you?
I don't know. I know you wrote how long
something
you want the
different.
show to be, I guess. We can keep
Nope,
talking.
Shannon, you're up.
You want to shorten the show and you're throwing it to me.
Yep. We have to get it over with. It's like taking your medicine.
I have been asked to teach a class again to some middle schoolers. It's one of those things where they bring together multidisciplines, humanities and music and all this stuff. And I am trying to build a project where the students build a lyre, the stringed instrument, Lyre. Basically trying to figure out a way that they can build it with the minimal amount of tooling and the least amount of like prep on my part. Like you could do all kinds of cool projects if you have, spent hours and hours and hours doing setups and cutting joinery and having pieces that just kind of fit together. I went to Michael's, they've got the whole little wood product section. And I found a whole bunch of picture frames that have this like kind of ornamental shape to the outside, just a series of OGs and things like that. And I've been able to cut one side off of the picture frame and glue it kind of a third of the way down the inside so that I now have a U shape and a crossbar for the lyre that you can then thread up. And actually, I think it's going to work because these are 8th graders. So I should say, like, if I went down to maybe 5th grade, I'd be a little cautious about the use of certain saws and things. But 8th graders and the size of the class tells me that I can at least use like a dozuki, relatively straightforward, easy to start. So they basically cut that away. There's already a rabbet, you think of the back of a picture frame where the picture goes. So there's already a rabbet in place. So I can get glue surface on, 3 faces there. It slides in nicely, clamps up, glues up, uses, I'm not allowed to say that anymore, am I? Some certain clamps that we got a while ago that you squeeze and have a little stretchy part in them.
You mean the Wood River flexible spring clamp things?
Exactly. But I put a different paint job on mine because I didn't like that. So yeah, they're a different color.
Fair enough.
So we'll use those clamps to put them together. And then I've pre-drilled a bunch of holes to put these tacks in that they'll use for, what do you call those pins that the string goes around? There is an actual musical term. I should know that as a music major, but I was a voice major.
I was a drummer.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think honestly, this is a project that's going to come together that should be doable. And during glue up, we'll have a lunch break, but then there's also there's
Tuning
several
peg?
other. I guess. Well, no, because it's not actually turning. Well, whatever. The attachment point, because the strings are fixed in that particular instance. We're not getting that fancy on this thing.
Okay.
Nobody knows how to play a lyre, by the way. So even if it was tuned properly, it would still sound like crap. So including me.
Okay.
So yeah, I think it'll work. By the time we do glue up, break for lunch, and then like the humanities professor is doing like a little lesson, and then there's the science professor's coming in and talking about, the physics and acoustics and shortening strings and all that fun stuff. Cool. So I think it'll kind of work out. But what it's meant is I've got a stack of 38 of these frames piled up behind me on the bench, and I'm just drilling 6 different holes in each one and laying out all the cuts so that all they have to do is follow the line. And then I'm trying to figure out Plan B, contingency plans for when the cuts don't go as they should.
Yeah.
Because they won't.
Good idea.
Yeah. So we're gonna see. But yeah, it's a fun project. It's another one of those, we get questions about people who want to teach woodworking or do woodworking for kids, and starting with something and butchering it, turning a frame into a musical instrument. It's not something I ever thought I'd see myself doing as a woodworker, but here we are. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Fun.
Though. Cool idea.
Hopefully, I'll report back. This is in 2 weeks, so we'll see what happens.
Let us know how it goes.
Not to mention, it's a summer program, so and volunteer. I should say, not summer school. These kids want to be here, so hopefully we'll see what happens.
Cool. Well, good luck. All right. Well, you guys know who else likes to eat fresh vegetables?
Hey, their branded colors are green, so why not?
Yeah.
Your favorite green thumb, Woodcraft Supply.
You know who else likes to make green stuff?
Nice. There you go.
I like the
Well
first
done.
one better. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I got a bunch of good stuff here from our friends at Woodcraft. First, they just launched their Just Get Started campaign, where the goal is to encourage new young woodworkers to put down their phones, like my Dingleberry kids in there with their phones, and experience the joy of making something with their hands. Or maybe you're an old curmudgeon like us, and it's time to stop procrastinating and doing all that research and just get your butt in the shop and make something. They set up a nice landing page for this. I really want you guys to check this out. We'll put the link in the show notes. I don't want to read a URL here, but it's definitely going to be very informative. It's an incredible learning resource, tons of inspiration, everything that you would need to get the job done, because they're not only teaching you how to do it, but of course it's Woodcraft, so they have the supplies and everything you would need to get that thing done. You just kind of run out of excuses when you do something like that.
Challenge accepted.
We'll find out. We'll see.
Yeah.
During the month of June, you can also enter, you guys are going to love this. We haven't talked about giveaways and stuff for a long time, but you can also enter their Just Get Started Sweepstakes. Yeah. Winning free stuff. And I'm just looking at this right now. First time looking at it. Grand prize is a saw stop compact table saw with a stand, a Woodcraft gift card.
Awesome.
Yeah, real stuff. They're not messing around.
Wow.
$200 gift card at Woodcraft. And of course, one of those sweet hats that we got from Woodcraft. I'm not going to read all these. There's a second prize. This is clearly saw stops
it's like holy
involved here.
these packages.
Yeah. So second prize is like a
just
miter
open this link.
gauge.
I thought you were like reading. Oh, that's it. 4 things. That's it. Nope. That's not even.
That's
close
just
to
one
it.
prize. That's the grand prize. Then you get a bunch of Wood River stuff, like a template. It's very focused on routers for the stuff in the second prize. And then you got a third prize with a cheese slicer kit, a cutting board kit. So they do have these beautiful kits at Woodcraft, where if you're stuck for an idea or you're looking to make gifts, Shannon, you've done stuff like this in the past.
Oh my God, I've made so many of these cheese
right?
slicers. So many of them.
Yeah.
That's the gift, like cutting boards. You give one to one family member and you're guaranteed to make 10 more.
Totally. Yeah. So anyway, this is a great sweepstakes. I believe for the entire month of June, you'll be able to go there and enter. Of course, there's probably details you want to read on enter, how many times you can enter.
So all you got to do is enter.
like
You
that.
don't have to like build something and show that you got started.
Doesn't look like it.
Nope.
The only thing you have to do is get started on clicking on this thing to enter. That's what you got to do.
All you got to be is not a robot. There you go.
Yeah. Ideally, that would be nice. Yeah. So go check that out.
They have on that Get Started page, there's a couple of things there, but those ring kits have always interested me. Like it's one of those things that's like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, but like, yeah, maybe someday. But yeah, I need a new one. Ever since I lost a bunch of weight, I haven't worn a ring.
Oh, you got to get a new ring. Well, there you go. Good deal. Shannon, you got the next thing.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I was too busy looking at the Get Started thing.
He's shopping for rings.
I'm hoping to get started. So, the other thing that's cool,
He's out there
what I like about trying to finish the ad here.
Yeah,
Come on,
setting up fake email accounts to get more entries.
That's what he's doing.
Writing a script right now.
You could do that later, Shannon.
Farming
Come
the
on.
Woodcraft sweepstakes. Who needs Bitcoin when you can get sweepstakes? So, wasn't that one of the plot lines in Real Genius? Yeah. There's the throwback. Old Val Kilmer.
That is a throwback.
R.A.P. Val Kilmer. Okay, now that we brought that down, one of the things that I like about Woodcraft is they've got just cool stuff happening at all the stores. If you've got one store, 3 stores, whatever, there's something happening. So check out your local store. But June 14th, we've got at your local Woodcraft store. This is for Marc. Getting started with resin.
A little too late.
Yes! No, I'm teaching it, actually.
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Well, teaching is all about just knowing one thing more than the people,
That's
Doesn't
it.
matter how long you've known it.
That's it. Join me.
June 21st, getting started with turning. These are both at 1 p.m. Is this happening at all of our local Woodcrafts? Just
To
everywhere?
my understanding, if you have a local Woodcraft, this is just a demo that's going to be happening on June 14th, the resin one at 1 p.m., June 21st, turning at 1 p.m. Kind of like, I guess, a universal thing that they all do.
Very cool.
I'm sort of learning more about the system and how it all works because at the end of the show, we're actually going to read off some of the specific, very local things that are only happening at certain local stores that we think you guys would want to know. But we're going to put it at the end of the show because it's not going to apply to everybody, but stay tuned because you definitely want to, especially if it's your local store, you don't want to miss out because there's some really cool things happening. Thank you to Woodcraft for sponsoring the show. We appreciate it. And now we'll get into our questions. I got the first one here from Greg. Greg says, I've been woodworking for about 10 years now. I work in a hybrid style, hand tools when they make sense. Almost never. Power tools when they make things faster. I'm just trying to take a shot at Shannon. That whole approach actually started after I found Marc on YouTube.
on hybrid stuff. So like we only.
Just a good running joke for us.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fine.
So
Continue.
Greg says, I mostly build furniture for my house in a mid-century modern style. I still design with pencil and paper. Sometimes I'll make a quick model and and while I technically own a CNC, it's currently buried under sawdust and may or may not be seized up. So I'm wondering, what am I really missing out on without having more tech? Am I limiting my creative potential or just skipping a convenience? Would adding SketchUp or CAD skills improve my quality of work? I'll happily grab my domino to cut a mortise instead of reaching for a chisel. Sorry, Shannon. So maybe this is just a different line in the sand. I'd love to hear your take on where technology actually adds value and where it's just noise. Thanks. This is complicated to answer. Like at first I was like, oh, this is...
I was going to say, better you than me.
Just a CNC question, right? And then I thought about it and I'm like, well, no, he brings up a valid point because a lot of us do draw that line in the sand. Very many that listen to this show draw a line in the sand where it's just they're not going to get into CNC. But are they missing something? Is there a benefit that they don't have to sell their soul, to do the whole CNC thing, where they don't have to totally let go of the process, but that they can improve things? So, I can only speak from my personal experience. First of all, digital design has been incredibly helpful. Do you think I really want to sketch out the dimensions of a mortise and tenon joint, like by hand? That's just not something I'm going to do. But in SketchUp, I've become skilled enough with it that I could work that out based on the thickness of the pieces, the location. I just kind of do this focus in on one joint. I won't sketch it through the whole project, but I'll get that one done, and then I have my numbers, and it's done. Right? So there are things that will save me time on and allow me to work some things out ahead of time. Proportions are very useful in a digital space where I could experiment with the size of rails and stiles on a door. Does it look good in this frame? What happens if the stiles... what if the rails get really wide and you keep your stiles thin? What does that look like? You can answer those questions very quickly. And if you're doing this with pencil and paper, it takes a whole lot longer. So there's definitely
doing it like
value.
mock-up style too. Like actually making those things to see how they look.
Yeah. Maybe that's better. And maybe doing trial runs on things is going to get you a better, more accurate result. But it sure as heck takes more time.
As far as some of the examples you said, you kind of have to do both. Like you see it in the computer, like, oh, that looks like it's great. You do it in person, like it just looks weird in real life, and vice versa too.
Yeah. I think there's a learning curve to get used to that. And as many times as I've done it, I have often been surprised at what I thought looked good doesn't quite look the way I thought it was going to look based on SketchUp. So a little bit of a word of warning, but I wasn't sure if that's something that everyone suffers from or if it was just me.
I don't know. Me too. I don't know if that's
okay,
a good sampling or not, but
yeah, maybe. Well, let us know, people.
If
you have the same problem. So I do think minimally, if you're using it to just kind of supplement your design efforts, that's going to be helpful to some extent. It's definitely going to be helpful. And then the actual CNC itself. I can say if all you used your CNC for was to execute templates, right? So when you're trying to do a curve and you want a nice symmetrical curve, look at what we have to do in the shop to make that happen, right? Sometimes it's not as,
and it's probably not going to be perfect.
And it's not going to be perfect
anyway.
Yeah, and honestly, the best way to get a truly symmetrical curve is to only draw half of it and then flip it over to get the other half, right?
So now you got to cut it out though. So it's like, it doesn't matter.
You can't do it all in one shot. You'd have to do it
it's kind of irrelevant. That's a fun trick for like drawing it or whatever, but you still got to like cut it out to make the template and somehow get the lines the same on both sides. It's not happening.
It's way harder than it seems. And, bending strips and things like that, sure, that works. But if you're using a piece of plywood or a piece of wood, there's varying density across there and how it flexes under pressure.
Or how you're holding your pencil.
How you're holding your pencil definitely influences it, right? So many variables. But if you tell a CNC to draw a curve or use it to cut a curve, and that comes out of a piece of like quarter-inch MDF.
Unless you have that exact radius of that bandsaw question from last time. A 20-foot radius curve.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. I think it really opens up possibilities, and I don't enjoy making templates. Definitely not something that I would go, yeah, this is fun. It's just part of the process that gets me to the fun stuff.
I have explicitly avoided bent lamination on several projects because I didn't want to have to deal with making the form.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, especially if it's wider and you've got to like stack laminate sheet goods to create that form. Now I have to create not just the form, but like 6 exact versions of that form, stack them together. And I've ended up like using a solid piece of wood and cutting a curve into it instead.
Yeah. And imagine if you could have just, quickly drawn it out, send it to your CNC, and those pieces are cut out of a 4x8 sheet. And now you just got to glue them together. Right.
Yeah.
It can be a game changer. So I don't want to say that like you are totally missing out on stuff, Greg, but I do think if you are curious about that, you own the CNC, you must be curious about it, that you have the potential to improve things, improve your workflow at the very least. Is it going to make you a better woodworker or a better designer? That I don't necessarily think is a big factor. It might, especially if you embrace it. You become a Daryl Peart, right? Who sees the CNC as just part of how he creates his art. It's going to do things that he may not be able to do by hand. But ultimately, I think for the average Joe, I don't know that it's necessarily going to make you a better craftsperson, but it's definitely going to open up the playbook and probably inspire creativity. And who knows, maybe it'll just inspire something that you never would have thought possible because now you have access to that stuff. So
another question too is like if you're looking at it like a joinery machine, if you're ready to kind of like, oh, maybe I want to do like a multi-router or a panel router, one of those things.
Yeah.
You're like, you know what? You can do that on the CNC too, and you can set up your joinery jigs and have the CNC do all that cutting so you're not actually moving a router around, moving the table around. That's another like option for that. But is that something you're interested in too? Or like you trying to cut fun joinery onto something? Like the example in my mind is like on my chair kits for like the crest rails, they've got mortises and other mortises. There's 5 mortises along the curve for the style 3. So you're cutting all those mortises along that curve somehow. You can do that in a jig on the CNC, or you can do that in a jig on a panel router, or you can do that on a multi-router, or you can do that with some kind of manual block thing in a handheld router. So it's like, where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, I've seen some amazing setups when I was doing my spoil board with the micro jig grid. Some amazing setups with people who are way down that rabbit hole of utilizing the CNC for joinery. So they have the whole front edge of the CNC with a clamping surface and reference surfaces because they're going to be putting boards in there and vertically and doing stuff to the end of the board. You can really geek out on it, but you better be ready to, dive headfirst into that world because it's like by the time you figure it out, you could have made 5 projects already, or done it some alternative way until you get efficient.
But again, going back to the original question, like, does it make you a better woodworker at that point? I don't really know. I don't know. You're cutting a tenon on the end of a board with a CNC versus on the table saw. It's still a tenon. It's still got to fit the mortise you cut correctly. Yeah. But maybe once you dial it in on the CNC, that mortise is going to be exactly like 4 thousandths too big for that tenon, and it's going to slip in perfectly the first try. Mm-hmm. Is that what you want to do? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of subjectivity to it, certainly. Well, cool. Let us know what you do, Greg, because that was a very... I feel like most CNC questions are kind of just typical fare. This was an angle on the CNC and design question that I thought was really good. So, Shannon, you're up.
So Brian asked us on Patreon, because we asked for questions on Patreon. Thank you to those Patreon supporters. We'll answer your question. Brian said, is there a correct way to cut a burl from a tree? I'm looking at some silver maple firewood. So this leads me to believe that he's got pieces of firewood that have a burl on it, in which case, good for you, Brian. Because the first part of this question is a big no-no. Is there a correct way to cut a burl from a tree? Yeah, cut down the whole tree first. The chances of you killing that tree by cutting the burl off of it, we also call that poaching. It's bad, really bad.
I didn't know that. I thought you could just kind of slice it off and slap some...
it's like a wart, you think?
And I think cut it off.
The misnomer is...
Put a little antibiotic ointment on there, you're good.
Yeah, no big deal. Oh, well, and I do think that there are cases where you can pull that off, right? Like if the tree is on your property, the burl is essentially compartmentalized from the rest of the tree in many cases. So it's kind of doing its own thing, and the tree is kind of growing around it, and the burl is growing also, usually at different rates. But here's the first thing. From a usable grain perspective, that burl will probably extend all the way into the pith, to the center of the tree. Oh, so just cutting a slice off the trunk, you're liable to be missing half of that wood grain. Plus, and again, it depends upon the size of the burl, but you're cutting a giant wound into that tree that it now needs to scab over. And really, that's bark. Bark is what protects the tree, cambium layers, things like that. You're cutting down to the quick. You're exposing the bones, the heartwood of the tree, and it's just a massive place for infection. Even if the tree manages to fight off that infection, it's going to weaken it. It's going to affect its growth elsewhere, which could be, it means the tree recovers from the burl wound, but now it's infected with emerald ash borer or powder post because the tree was weakened elsewhere. Or, it loses in its competition war with the other 3 trees around it, and it just dies 6 years later. You're tipping the scale that it's going to die. So while if you were a botanist and it was on your property and you were able to graft things to it and feed it antibiotics and do all kinds of stuff, you could probably allow a tree to recover. But think of it as the same way as nursing a family member back to health that just had a leg cut off with no antibiotics. It's the same type of thing. So the moral of the story is don't do it unless you're taking down the entire tree. Now, as far as what's the best way to saw the burl? Now, Matt's the sawyer here, but I will tell you, I've talked to enough sawyers that have dealt with burls and specialize and sell burls. Ultimately, you want to, so you've harvested the whole tree, you want to cut at least 6 inches away from the burl. If you're separating that burl out from the trunk, you want to throw a little bit of buffer wood, non-burl wood around it, and let that stuff check and crack as it's drying. Because if you cut right flush with a burl, well, then some of that beautiful grain, it's going to crack as it dries. There's just no way around that. If it is small enough burl, from there, I would dip it in wax, cover it in paraffin wax. If it's a big thing, obviously that's a little more hard to do. Don't paint it. You want to either buy, actual sealer like Anchor Seal, or do an Elmer's glue solution and paint the entire thing with it. There is no in-grain here. There is no grain whatsoever. It's chaos grain. So it's going to be dumping moisture from all over the place. Once that's kind of dried and you want to do something with it, a lot of people will slice it like a cookie and try to get as much, real estate of that burl as possible. If you're cutting it up into like bowl blanks and things like that, again, there's really no grain direction. But you do want to see kind of where the burl has started to check, where the burl has started to crack, and kind of embrace that and cut along those lines. Because it's all about super, super precious grain. If you already have it, I hate to say defect, because then in the burl a defect anyway, but if there's already a check, use that as like your starter curve. So you're not like cutting a section of burl that's got a check in it. Try to cut through that and just be really kind of surgical about how you break that apart into various parts. But if you don't know what you're going to build with it, keep it as big and as intact as possible until you decide. Because then once you start cutting it open, now you're exposing more moisture. You could potentially basically have to like paint it with more wax to keep it from checking and stuff like that. But yeah, the big thing is that buffer wood so that stuff checks instead of the precious crazy grain stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, I got a lot of questions about this, and everything you said, Shannon, was great. The one thing I'll add is for the people that are like, I don't know, like what way to cut this, how to like whatever. I always try and like get them down the road of like, what are you trying to make out of this thing? So you can establish like, okay, I need this kind of shape mostly, because shapes are kind of weird, especially if they're like, I want to do some kind of weird live edge thing. So you start walking down the path of, okay, what kind of live edge thing do you want? Do you want an oval-y kind of shape? Do you want to incorporate some of that buffer wood and have it not really be buffer wood, but actually be part of the piece where you have like normal grain wood flowing into the burl starting? And you're going to cut more longitudinally down the log. So you have that kind of bulbous and then like stick leg thing going on. Or do you want just like a cookie style where you actually have the buffer wood cookie with a bulge coming out of it? That's another kind of shape. But if you're planning on cutting it down into like turning blanks and whatever blocks, it really doesn't matter because there's no grain direction. It's just
no grain direction.
So a side question. I've always kind of just assumed because of the crazy grain, the lack of directionality to the grain in a burl, is there enough structural integrity? And I know we usually don't have enough length on a burl to actually get like lumber out of it typically, right? But is there enough structural integrity? Hypothetically, if you could get lumber and like 4/4 stock out of burl, is that something that like once it's dry and once it's fully, stable, is that something that has enough structural integrity to treat it like a regular piece of wood? Or is that crazy grain generally like creating new fracture points and weaknesses? And maybe this is just a hypothetical that can never really happen because we don't have big enough burls to get full-size lumber out of. Does my question make sense?
I don't think I would trust it. And the bigger thing is it's going to move so unpredictably when you cut it down to 4/4. So like when you look at a lot of like burl coffee tables, it's usually like a cookie type shape and it's 2+ inches thick, because you need that thickness just to kind of contain it. Or the other side of this is buy burl veneer.
Right.
And look at just like you've got to use a veneer softener on that because it's just crazy. Yeah. It's wavy and all over the place. And that's what's going to happen to your 4/4 board. But it's not quite in grain, but it's also not quite interlocked grain. It's crazy grain. So structurally, I don't think I would trust it at all.
Yeah. Okay. I was always curious about that.
No, it's a good question. And I think the greater part there is it's probably just not possible.
Right.
Like if you had a burl that big, and I've seen some 6-foot diameter cherry burls before. Yeah. There's a guy up in Lidditz, PA that is still working his way through one. He built coffee tables out of them.
Nice.
But he's cutting them like 10/4 thick to pull that off. That's almost like if you were to cut a 6-foot long, like 6-inch wide board out of that. What would you use that for? Just design wise, like how would you integrate that into a piece of furniture?
Workbench, sure. Something incredibly ugly.
A workbench.
Yeah, it's Matt's new workbench.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah. Just because he can.
You hit it the wrong way and it cracks in half.
Yeah. Highly figured rails and stiles with a perfectly plain grain panel. Why not?
Yeah.
Flip that on its head.
That'd be great. All right, Matt, you're up.
Oh my goodness, that was a good one. All right. Oh, as we alluded to earlier, this is from Martin. Hey guys, long-time listener, first-time questioner. I cut a bunch of wet cherry bowl blanks a month ago. I sealed them with PVA, but they are cracking already. The last couple of days, I've been rushing to rough turn them all in a bid to save them. They are being stored in a well-ventilated brick shed. Was PVA a bad choice, or is this the cherry's fault? Dun, dun, dun. I'll say this up front. It could be the cherry's fault. We'll circle back to that. I've never used PVA as an actual like sealer like this. I've always used actual like real end grain sealer, wood sealer. Anchor seal is what I use, which is an emulsified wax. I find that works like really, really well. Sometimes if you like on bulb blanks specifically, because they are kind of like a weird giant block of wood, you might want to do more than one coat. That can also help to really lock in all the moisture, keep it from drying and cracking. I have walnut bulb blanks that I processed 15 years ago, still sitting on the shelf, that are coated in anchor seal, and they look kind of dusty, but they look the same as they did when I cut them apart from their rounds 15 years ago. So if you process them well and you store them correctly, they should be fine. That brings me to the next part of this question here. Well-ventilated brick shed. You don't really want well-ventilated for this because that's going to help to bring moisture and dry it out and further allow them to crack. So ideally, not really much ventilation at all. You don't want mold, so you don't want like stagnancy too much, unless you want mold. That could be fun. The mold will necessarily...
No, it can't.
I don't know. Maybe like
mold bad.
Maybe you're into mold.
You put it in your cheese curing room, and like it helps the.
Okay, fine.
Matt knows what he's talking
all,
about.
All the different things kind of melt together, and you get this special funk going, and it's just so good.
Matt's Special Funk.
Special
Show title.
Funk. There you go, Matt's Special Funk.
It is special. I've smelt it.
So yeah, you don't want it to be drying out and like you don't want any drying really happening. You just don't want any mold to start developing. So even just keep them not in that space. Maybe like
that's where I've always heard like the bowl blank paper bag thing. You take your bowl blank. I mean, they do this for twice turned bowls as well, but you could do it with an unturned blank. You know, wax it or anchor seal it, throw it in a paper bag, and the paper bag kind of pulls the excess moisture.
Right. Yeah, but slowly.
Slowly
allowed to
absolutely.
leave. Unlike
or like
wrapping it in plastic,
with,
it would mold.
I think Ashley was doing this with bags of her shavings.
Yep, you can do that too.
From the turning too, right?
Yep.
So you're letting it kind of extract the moisture, but super, super slowly, right?
Yep. And then the last thing, circling back, could be the cherry's fault. You could have had this round or this log or whatever sitting out for however long before you process into bowl blanks. Once it starts drying out there naturally without any sealing on there, the stresses have already developed inside the log. You start cutting it into bowl blanks, those stresses are still there, and a little bit more drying, and then poof, you got the cracks opened up. Those cracks are probably there, but they were so small you can really see them when you process them. So that's another. It could be the cherry's fault, or it could be your fault, or it could be a lot of things.
Could be the mold.
It could be the mold. It could be your special funk wasn't quite funky enough.
Yeah,
that's it.
Needs more funk. All right, well, I think that's going to do it for us, you guys. Remember, this show is made possible by the generous contributions, and also the general ones. I mean,
the general contribution fund.
The non-specific contributions of our patrons at patreon.com/woodtalk, as well as our friends at Woodcraft. Now, there's always something cool going down at your local store. We've got a couple upcoming events we want to let you know about. June 7th, it's Woodcraft of Walpole, Massachusetts. I don't know Massachusetts that well. I'm bad at it. But anyway, that place, they're hosting a IYRS day, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's a School of Technology and Trades will be demonstrating and discussing tools and techniques used in the restoration and construction of wooden boats.
Oh,
how cool is that?
That's
right on.
Very cool. I kind of wish I was on the coast now. We have it here. Okay, June 9th through 13th at the Woodcraft of Atlanta, they're having this Father's Week event. Each night there's a 3-hour class designed for dads and their kids 10 and up to make a project together.
How awesome is that?
Right on.
Father's Day has come up, apparently.
Yeah.
Apparently. Yeah. Happens every year.
As it turns
June
out.
10th.
Thanks, Shannon.
Yeah. June 10th in Greenville, South Carolina is the Turn for the Troops. 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Show up. They'll let you turn a pin. They'll be donated to active and retired members of our military. It's a free event with no turning experience required. So learn how to turn a pen and give it to a soldier.
That's awesome. Good cause. June 28th, they're having the 4th annual Family Day at the Woodcraft of Appleton, Fox Cities, Wisconsin. Learn about woodworking by doing hands-on builds at the Project Center. There will be woodworking and tool demonstrations throughout the day. You can even talk to some experts and see their work. That's June 28th. Awesome stuff. So if you're in any of those areas, that might be something to look into.
Let me add this because I was curious. I brought this up before we started recording, like what's happening in my local Woodcraft, because my local Woodcraft is pretty new to the point where I don't even think I get the circular because I've actually never given that Woodcraft store any money.
Yeah.
But if you go, there is a spot on the website at the bottom of the page. There's a big link to your local Woodcraft store. And, you know, of course, if your browser has GPS, whatever, turned on, it'll tell you right away. But you can basically find a store. And I just looked it up in Baltimore, found my store, and found all the stuff that they're doing, including a hand-cut dovetail class in July. So,
Nice.
So yeah, if you didn't know, if you feel disenfranchised because the list we just gave you doesn't include your local town, well, go to woodcraft.com.
There's a hand-cut dovetail class at the store near me too. Saturday, July
I'm just
12th.
I'm reading the ones they gave me. Like these are the ones that they wanted to highlight, but ultimately there's going to be lots of stuff going on. So yeah, a good online resource is certainly the way
just
to
go to their store locator, and they'll have a store. At least I think every single one has its own kind of store page.
Yeah.
And it shows you the classes they have and events that are
There's
going
a lot
on
of
and all that fun
classes.
stuff.
Oh, look at that. I'm on the St. Louis one right now. Okay, yeah, look at that. So do that, guys. Go check it out. If we didn't, call out the name or your city,
Do your
there's
own
definitely more
research.
going on. Yeah, do it yourself. We're empowering you to get the information. That's what we do here.
Yep.
Good deal. Awkward pause. Waiting for
Awkward
Shannon.
pause. Oh yeah, there's more to talk about, isn't there? Yeah, that's right.
Are we done?
That's 2 for you
That was
today,
the
man.
end. Well, you know,
Two.
Mark said it was at the end of the show when we did this, so and I'm done. I'm
out.
halfway out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Get some lunch.
He's
See you
already on
later.
his bike.
I'm out of here.
So yeah, you guys know what to do. Send us questions. We had questions on this show. We need them. Or the show is just us talking about garden beds, apparently, because
Yeah.
that was the theme of the show. So go to woodtalkshow.com, fill out the form, email us, woodtalkshow@gmail.com, or you can even hit us up on Instagram if you want. What is that? Woodtalk Show?
If you
At
want.
Woodtalk Show.
Do
Yeah,
what you
I should
want.
know that. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But yeah, email us. Send us questions.
Yeah, become a patron, and
Really
we'll ask
trailing
you.
off there this time.
I think Shannon really needs some lunch.
Yeah.
I do. It is well after lunch for me right now.
Okay,
Let's
let's let
reading
Shannon go.
comprehension is not strong.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you next time.
Okay, bye.
Go become a patron.
Do it. Do it now.